Con el permiso de mis papás acá presentes, mi esposa, distinguidos Rabanim, queridos todos, antes que nada me quiero tomar un momento para agradecerle a Hashem por pertenecer a darme oportunidad de pertenecer a esta gran institución y estar parado ante ustedes hoy. Es un honor presentarles y darle la bienvenida a Rab Shimon Russell, psicoterapeuta con licencia y maestría en trabajo social de la Universidad de Rutgers, un referente mundial en temas de crianza, salud mental y desarrollo emocional en el mundo judío. Con más de 40 años de experiencia como terapeuta familiar, ha ayudado a miles de padres a construir vínculos más sanos y amorosos con sus hijos. Su libro, Raising a Loving Family, ha transformado la vida de muchas familias. Hoy celebramos el lanzamiento de la versión en español de este libro, Cultivando Amor en Familia, un logro que ha sido posible gracias al esfuerzo y dedicación de todos los miembros de nuestra organización. Me uní a este proyecto con plena conciencia de que aún soy joven y estoy empezando mis pasos como papá. Sin embargo, esta misma juventud me impulsó a involucrarme, ya que reconozco cuánta guía y apoyo necesitan las nuevas generaciones, incluida la mía, y lo crucial que es fortalecer a los padres desde ahora. Al ver cómo esta organización trabaja con tanto compromiso para acompañar a las familias, comprendí que esto es mucho más que un simple proyecto. Es una necesidad urgente si deseamos construir un futuro sano y conectado para nuestra comunidad. Alpidar Co. se dedica a guiar a los padres y a fortalecer a las familias. Nuestro objetivo es ayudar a los padres a crear un núcleo familiar cálido y armonioso a través de materiales educativos y videos que ofrezcan herramientas para cultivar relaciones significativas con sus hijos. Nos enfocamos en brindar a los padres apoyo mediante acciones preventivas y educativas basándonos en experiencias de otras comunidades y en las enseñanzas del Rab Shimon Russell. Nuestro compromiso es prevenir problemas emocionales y familiares en futuras generaciones, ofreciendo respaldo ante cualquier situación. El libro que lanzamos hoy es un reflejo de esta filosofía. En sus páginas, Rab Shimon comparte enseñanzas que nos guiarán en nuestro viaje como padres, cuidadores y miembros de la comunidad. Estamos emocionados de que él esté aquí para compartir su sabiduría y responder nuestras preguntas. I would like to thank Rabbi Shimon and his wife for dedicating their lives to helping parents and children from so many communities around the world and now from Mexico City too, for making time in their busy schedule to be with us today and allowing us to translate his book. También agradezco a la señora Rivka Pea, fundadora de Alpidar Co., y a nuestro equipo, Rabbi Yoshua Gertzulin, Jaya Liberson, Isaac Dayan, Livi Memun y Sharon Cohen. Agradecemos su presencia y apoyo. Juntos podemos construir un futuro donde cada familia sea un espacio de amor y comprensión. Y ahora sí, les dejo con Rab Shimon Russell. Disfruten del evento.
Thank you. Put it back. Take it. Show me. It's my pleasure, it's an honor for me to introduce to the Mexican community my new Rebbe of late, of the last few years, who has taught me so much in my personal life, as well as helped me have the opportunity to be part of other people's lives. It was a few years ago that I met him. To make the long story short, we brought him to Mexico and we translated his book. But I'd like to elaborate a little bit on it, to understand why there was a terrific group of young, not young, but not old, group of men and women who initiated this and pushed for this to bring Reb Shimon to Mexico and to establish an organization that they established called Alpidar Co. So although we're really here tonight, honestly, to celebrate the translation of this book into Spanish. That's the excuse. But we're really here to try to present why we wanted to translate this book. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. A year ago, when we started this idea, I mentioned a story. I don't want to say it again. But then we were talking about that something is changing in the generation. Something is changing. Machanchim feel it. Parents feel it. This book that we now translated and was printed probably wouldn't have been written 75 years ago in the way it was written. Right? Something happened that brought Rabbi Russell, who I need you to understand, I know him too long already, so I need the people here to understand he's a man 30 years or more in the field of therapy and chinuch, opening schools, moistis, sort of rehabs. When I heard him in the beginning, which is 4 or 5 years ago, he at that point said he has met over 10,000 teens who have been struggling with their Yiddishkeit. This is not, there's people who know, and there's people who know, and then there's a man who has 10, 15,000 case files of kids dealing with these issues. I've been living here for a while, and I'm seeing the shift myself. And when I heard Rabbi Russell say, I don't know exactly how many years ago, soon he will elaborate, Rev. Matisyahu Solomon, his Rebbe, sent him to Gateshead and to Manchester, places in England. What was it?
In London.
20 years ago? How long ago was that?
25 years ago.
25 years ago, to speak about these issues as it was relevant then. Mexico, for the good and for the bad, is 25 years late. But anyone's in chinuch knows something is changing. And therefore, what I want to speak with Rabbi Russell, and I'd like him to share with us, is although the book is really, I see over here, there's people here, the public here is all different ages. People who have young children, older children, people who are struggling with their children, people who, Baruch Hashem, don't even know what struggling with children means, and it should remain that way. All different kinds. I want Rabbi Russell to help us understand we're 20 years behind, 15 years behind. To quote one of the very chashav rabbanim in the city, who I heard in his name just a short while ago, that Mexico used to be actually different. It used to be more secluded. The internet has changed that. The whole world is in the palm of every child's hands. The seclusion doesn't help in Mexico anymore. What did you see then? What's happening? What are we theoretically in for? And that's really what I believe is the reason you wrote the book, and that's what this all has to do with the book.
Okay, can everyone hear me? First of all, I just want to say to Rabbi Gertzl and the Alpidarko people, I'm looking around this room. This is very humbling. The people in the front should take a look how many people are here. This is overwhelming. I must tell you, I've never been to a new city where I didn't know anybody and had this turnout. And I think it's a credit to both the organization and to the community here that you know that we need to talk about these inyanim. It's clear that you know, or you wouldn't be here. And what can I say? Kol hakavod. I'm a bit speechless, which is very rare for me. but I am a little bit speechless because they're sitting all the way up the stairs. I mean, it's wild. Let me address the question, Rabbi Gertzlin. So he was correct that many years ago, my Rebbe sent me, when we first started talking about the changes in the world and what was happening to the younger generation today. So my Rebbe sent me back. He came from England, from Gateshead, and he sent me back to England to inform the communities what was coming their way, to prepare them. I hate to be a prophet of doom, I'm not, but he wanted people to know that the world has changed. The world that once was is no more. I find I sit with families constantly who are yearning for the culture of a generation ago and so worried about how will I bring up my children in this generation. Watching as they do, the Metzias on the ground, that this is not the world that was. For example, just for a tiny little example, and if you haven't noticed it here, the truth is, for myself, part of my agenda in writing the book was to try and help educate the world for how we're going to embrace and deal with all this. Because the reality, here's the bottom line, painful truth. We can no longer, the world, our world, the Torah world, the world of Jewish people, from Jewish people, we can no longer guarantee that we can shelter our children. Whatever we thought we could in previous generations, whatever were the norms of previous generations in terms of sheltering, and coupled with sheltering was the expectation of children respecting their elders, listening to their elders, following in the footsteps, accepting the Musa, the hadracha and direction of their elders. That world is disappearing in front of us. And I think anyone who doesn't notice that is missing it. And I'm guessing the fact that this group, this incredibly large group of people here tonight, is a testament that you know I'm right. That world is changing. Sheltering alone doesn't work anymore. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't shelter our kids. We should do everything we can to shelter our kids, of course, it's partial. But sheltering alone is no longer the message, because that on its own won't work. The only possibility we have going forward, if we're not going to watch so many of our children falling away, I don't want to say the word rebelling, because I don't think it's rebelling. I think that it's not being nourished by our world, our culture, our system. In this world that they live in, they see and they know easily and quickly what's going on in the outside world. We can no longer prevent that. If we don't nourish our children from within, if we don't make our children feel they belong, they're wanted, they're desired to be part of our world, well, they will look elsewhere today. And I'm not saying it'll happen tomorrow morning, but what we've watched in every community in the world, this is worldwide. And there were communities, I don't want to mention them by name, but certain Hasidic communities that went into certain areas of their own where they founded their own sheltered community with no non-Jews there, nothing. And it was over 10 years ago, more, 15 years ago, they invited me in to try and help them too, because they recognized that they weren't nourished either, and their children were going off too. Because we can't stop anymore in the world we're living in our children from looking to be fulfilled and happy, or at the very least distracted by the outside world, if we're not going to nourish them from within. The premise of the book is the only possible way our children are going to stay close to us and stay close to our communities is if they feel loved. They feel loved by us, unconditionally loved by us. which is the premise of the book, raising a loving family. If we don't organize our lives in a way that our children feel all the time unconditionally loved, then we're in trouble. We're in deep trouble. Because they will look elsewhere and we can't stop it anymore. It's impossible. I joke with some of the yeshivas that when the boys go to yeshiva, some of the struggling yeshivas, so the Rebbeim ask them to hand in their smartphone. They have to hand in their phone. And the boys know. So I asked the yeshiva, so when they handed in the first phone, did you ask them for the backup? Because the kids come with a backup. So the yeshivas say to me, sure, we're smart. We asked them for the backup. I said, do you realize the boys go with 3 phones now? And if you take 3, they'll go with 4. And if you go with 4, they'll take 5. It's impossible to stop. If we don't nurture from within, they will be drawn without somewhere else. So that's the premise of the book. I think it's the premise of what we're trying to do, what Al-Pidako is trying to do, is we want to give a picture of how to do that in this very challenging world we live in today. Is that an answer?
A start.
A start, okay.
Like I said, with many of the people here are, I wouldn't call it behind, but they're with certain ideas that in other places in the world aren't here. Let's call it a lot more traditional. It's a traditional community. Now, when you say unconditional love, I don't think there's a parent here who wouldn't unconditionally give a kidney in a minute. If need so. If the life of their child depended on it, many parents do that. So what do you mean when you tell me unconditional love? I love my child unconditionally. What are you referring to?
So let's break down the question and then we can give an answer to the question. How many of us as parents believe we're giving unconditional love to our children and we've never once asked them, is that what you feel? It's kind of a scary thought to actually go and ask the kids, is that what you feel all the time? I know it's what I believe I do, but is that what you're feeling? Love does not exist in the action we do. Love exists in the reception. If you don't receive it, then love didn't occur. If I do an act of love, and I believe I buy my wife a box of chocolates, would you say that's, in theory, an act of love? Is that a loving thing to do? Well, she doesn't like chocolates, so that wouldn't work. But let's say I bought you a nice piece of jewelry. That would be a nice thing to do, correct? So we would all think, I think everyone here would agree, that's an act of love. I did an act of love. But if she told me, please don't buy me any more chocolates, I hate them, what I really want is you to spend time with me, then did love occur? See, in the world gone by, these questions were never asked or even thought about. In the world we're living in today, our children will connect with this question. I can do whatever I think is an act of love, but if it's not received as an act of love, then no, love did not occur. But I want to take it deeper. That's just the question. Let's take it deeper. In generations gone by, there existed a lid on society, and this lid I refer to as deference to elders, respect to elders. In the world gone by, people had respect to older people. It was natural, it was part of the culture, it was how we grew up. I would guess in this community, you're desperately still hanging on to that. You're hanging on to that. See, if we would, I'm not going to do it, but if we had a show of hands, how many people think that this community is 100% hanging on to respect to elders, that all the young people have a natural respect to their elders? The answer is they don't anymore. Now, in generations gone by, how was it achieved? How did we achieve this respect to elders? It was part of the society. It's part of the world we lived in. It wasn't just us, it was the world around us. Everyone had respect to elders. That world started shifting probably somewhere around the 1950s. I have a reason why, but we don't have to go into it now. And it shifted and shifted and shifted to a point now where most of the world, we have to work to get respect to elders. It doesn't happen naturally anymore. In the world gone by, when children didn't comply, what did all parents do? All of us. We did it. My parents did it. They withdrew love, and they showed a frustrating, angry face. And so the kids got scared, and they behaved. That's how chinuch was done in generations gone by. You got angry, you showed an angry face, you withdrew the loving face. In a certain way, it was threatening, and the kids behaved. Try doing that today. You know what will happen with you young kids today? They'll do it right back at you. They'll do it right back in your face. How many parents who have come to talk to us since we're here report that their kids can criticize and curse them? The world is changing, and if we don't accommodate to that change, if we simply lament and say it shouldn't be that way, then we're in trouble. What we need is to understand actively, so how do we reverse that? What do we do in order to help our children have structure, be disciplined, behave in a way that we're not going to do the angry face, withdraw the love, because we're seeing the results is very clear. The kids withdraw their love, show an angry face, and they say, I hate you. Here's the answer. And this answer we can break down maybe through the whole evening. But the essence of the answer is this. In this generation, like all generations, children desperately, and I mean desperately, need us as adults to offer them structure, offer them rules, offer them discipline. Kids cannot function if we don't. We have to give them structure for their lives. The one change in this generation, the kloliastika change in this generation, is that when we do it, we withdraw the anger and we do it with love. While both in schools and at homes, while we have to respond to our children, to guide them in their misbehaviors, shall I say, to guide them to healthy behaviors. And we have to put our foot down at times, certainly with younger children, but we do it with compassion in this generation. And it doesn't matter how they respond, we respond with love and with kindness and say that I'm so sorry, but it's bedtime. And when they say, well, I don't care about your stupid bedtime, I don't care, I'm not going to bed. Now, almost any parent is going to get upset at that moment, correct? Unless you're a malach, it's going to be really hard, correct? But bear with me, trust me, this way works, that way doesn't, as you may have tried. You just look at your kid and say, I'm so sorry it's hard for you, but it's still bedtime. And they say, well, I don't care, I'm not going to bed. I just told you. You're stupid, you didn't hear? I said to you, I'm not going to bed. And you say, wow, I see how difficult it is for you, but it's still bedtime. And it doesn't matter what they say to you. In this generation, remember in last generation, I remember my father one time came down 2 generations ago. He pulled off his belt. We were sitting at the breakfast table. He pulled off his belt and he whacked it on the table. By accident, it hit the sugar bowl. And the sugar bowl started dancing. And it danced towards the edge. We just sat there frozen, my brothers and I. And it fell on the floor and broke. And we all sat there. And he put his belt back on. And he said, just a warning. And let's go on breakfast. And we all, no one hated him. There was a generation once upon a time when that worked. Today, your kid becomes psychotic. You go to jail. This is not a good thing to do in this generation. The world we're living in, it's a what I see in the last 36 years as a therapist in the frum world is that it works beautifully when we do it with love and consistency. And guess what that demands of us all? We all have to work on ourselves. Very sorry. But this generation, this young generation, I saw there's a lot of young people here. You're going to be demanded to work on yourself in a way that never existed before, ever. Ever. Because your kids will not naturally accommodate your needs and your wishes, and they'll push back against you. And what you have to find in your heart is pure love, unconditional love. Doesn't matter what they say. The kid says, I hate you, Tati, or Daddy, or Papa. What is it? Papa?
Papi.
Papi? Papi?
Papito.
Yeah, I got it right?
Yes.
Lovely. I hate you, puppy. You're meant to look at your child in this generation and say, wow, that must be so hard for you. It's still bedtime. Which demands tremendous avodah midas. In previous generations, that got a slap in the face or some soap put on your tongue for speaking like that. You try putting soap on your kid's tongue, they'll bite your finger off. We have to come to terms with the fact that the world is changing in ways that we never dreamt or imagined, and that what it requires and demands of us is personal work on ourselves. Now I have to tell you, I've discussed this with many Gedolei Yisrael, many Hasidic Rebbes, exactly this point. And it would appear to me that the internet, which is fueling all this craziness, listen to this, it's going to be crazy. I'm going to say something crazy now. Everyone says, whoa, the internet, nebuch us, nebuch this door, there's the internet, right? Everyone's like, this is the language people use. The young people today are trying to bring up their children in a world that never existed before, ever. The exposure of children today, the convenience of babysitting children with that stupid tablet, the convenience of that is so seductive. And we don't even realize what we're doing when we give them those tablets and we allow them to be babysat watching, I don't know, the wheels on the bus go round and round in Spanish, right? They do go round and round here, I imagine, right? And we babysit the kids with this stuff because it's convenient and easy. And so we condition the kids to control their selves and their reactions with screens instead of working on themselves. The nisyonos of this door are unprecedented in the history of the world. The challenges for young parents never existed in the history of the world. And what it demands is working on yourself. It means we've got to work on ourselves, on our midas, in a way that never happened before in the history of the world. It was never required as much as it's required today. Because when your kid's cursing you in the face, when you say it's bedtime, and you need to lean into that and say, Shefala, or sweetie, what do they say here? Sweetie? I don't know.
Mi vida.
What do they say?
Mi vida.
Mi vida? Mi vida. How do you say it? Mi vida. And when you say mi vida, you don't slap them, but you say mi vida, that must be hard for you. They just must, what's it got to do with me? You said you hate me. Number one, I know my kid doesn't hate me. So why on earth would you react to a kid who says, I hate you? Well, you really think they hate you? You empower them when you react to it as if it's real. You give them power. You know, Messiachis is manipulation. It's nothing but childish manipulation. So you look at them and you lean into it and you say, wow, that must be so hard for you. But it's still bedtime. Still bedtime. Come, let's go. And when you do that 3, 4, 5 times in a row, guess what? They go to bed. But when you start getting angry with them, you actually empower the children. You give them koyach because they see that this little 6-year-old, 5-year-old thing, intimidated, got her mother crying. I mean, what does that mean? This 5-year-old little thing made her mother cry and call for reinforcements. You come home from work now, I can't cope. And this kid hears this. He hears the mother on the phone calling the husband back from work because I can't cope with him. You know what power that gives a child? No. You say that must be hard for you, Shefala. Mervida? Mervida?
That's good.
Mervida, that must be hard for you. But it's still bedtime. You always go back, well, you don't go back to bedtime if that's not what you're dealing with. You know, but if you're dealing with bedtime, you go back to bedtime. You know, bath time, brushing your teeth time, whatever it is, homework time. You go back to it calm, soft, and loving. In the face of their defiance, in the face of their anger, you go back to it, and you know what you're doing when you're doing that? You're creating attachment with your children. You know what attachment means?
Can I just stop?
I'm sorry, I'm on a
Just
roll
one
there.
thing I have to stop.
Yeah.
I'd love to be that father and mother.
Yeah, me too.
You describe it so beautifully. Just say nice, sweetheart. It sounds so nice.
Yeah.
But we're angry. But I am angry. You're making it like
No.
two powers that I have control over, and which one will I use this evening?
Can I just, look, I don't, does everyone hear the kasha? I'm so glad the Rav brought it up. The kasha is, but I am angry. So here's what I want everyone to think this very moment, if you agree with me. You're actually not angry. What you have is a program in your head from your childhood that this is what my mama and papa did, so this is what I do. I get angry because they got angry. I'm simply mimicking a program my parents put into me, which if I would step back for 1 minute, I would observe is not working. So why am I doing it? Am I crazy? It's not a thought out, like I'm not actually angry with what they're doing. I'm simply following a program that was put into me in my childhood, because that's what my parents did. They got angry. And if they didn't get angry, you were zoicha to have parents who didn't get angry, and some people are, then you don't have that program, and I think you wouldn't be getting angry. You would just be repeating like a broken record, because that works. How many people discover that getting angry with your kids has a long-term benefit for their chinuch? I don't know any person in this day and age who thinks that anger has any... No, listen to this. Nobody was ever angered into agreement. What they're angered into is compliance. Because they're scared of your anger. But they're not angered into agreement. Which means the same problems will happen tomorrow and the next day. Just right now, you got compliance. You intimidated your kid. The trouble with that is it doesn't create attachment with you and your child. And if you don't create attachment with your children, then when they go through life and they suffer and they struggle, they will go somewhere else. They will not come back to you. The whole premise of the book was written around this inyan, this concept of attachment. That we have to learn in this generation what previous generations didn't have to learn. I'll tell you something else that's amazing. I didn't look at the front. Does it have the gold medal thing?
Yes.
It does? I don't know if you noticed on the front cover of your book, on the top, this book was put in to the Independent Book Publishing Association of America, and they awarded it the gold medal in psychology. It beat the American Psychological Association. They put out a book that year. They came in second. And PESI, the organization that actually trains therapists all over the world, came in third. And they gave this book the gold medal. Because even the Goyim, it's astonishing. I was speechless. I was speechless. But apparently, universal truth, our truth, rings true even to the Goyim. Even to the Goyim who judged this book, first prize in 2022. Because attachment is at the heart of success with children. And we don't achieve attachment by getting angry with them. If one time you get angry, it's not the end of the world. And that's why I said that what is required in today's generation is that we shift the focus to work on ourselves, something that never occurred in previous generations. We were never, as parents, required to work on ourselves in order that we should have successful children. I don't believe that musig ever existed, ever, in the history of the world. The parents sat down and realized, I have to do work on myself that is unfinished business. I used to say a joke about this. The Chovos HaLevavos writes that why are babies so adorable? Why are babies? Their parents go with sugar over their baby. They hold that baby, they go crazy. You look at it, when you walk past the baby, you feel like you have to touch it. You have to schmettle it. You have to, babies, they just make us crazy. They have a chen, right or wrong. So the Chovos HaLevavos asked the question, and he says very simply that babies are made that way. Otherwise, how would we do all the work we need to do to take care of them? They disturb our lives completely. They throw our lives upside down. They disrupt a normal life. They interfere with us all the time. How would we do it if they didn't have that chen? So I added to this, well then, why is it that teenagers can be so obnoxious? Like, why is that? So it's pashut to me that if teenagers were so adorable like babies, we'd never let them get married. We'd want them home forever. The parting would be unbearable. Hashem put a chen in children, in babies, to give us the strength to cope. Otherwise, we never would have found the inner strength. As every parent knows, when you've got a baby, you have to work on yourself. It's not easy. That model is now true of the whole tchum of parenting, of all children, except they don't have the chen. They don't have the chen. Kodesh Baruch Hu, in His infinite wisdom, has given us challenges today that we never had. And I believe if we can relate to it through the window of my personal self-development. That these children are going to make me a better person. They're going to repair whatever damage was left over in my life. That's what my kids are going to offer me today. And that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's choice. That's why I say that the internet is a gift. It's a gift because it confronts us with things that we were never quite finished dealing with in the history of the world. And the internet forces us to face things, and there's no escaping it. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that at this time before Mashiach, that we're going to finally deal with the tikkunim we need to deal with. This is not a bad thing. These are historic gifts Hashem is giving us, and we have to adjust to see it.
I'd like for you to just elaborate a little bit on when you say the parent has to work, and you talk in code, parent has to work on unfinished business. The internet is here to create nisyonis and things. Please allow me to force you.
You sure?
Yes, with your permission. Please allow me to force you for us to realize and for us to be aware of what could be unfinished business that the parent has to work on. And then we'll try to talk a little bit more about noticing on the child what's going on.
When we bring up children, we as parents do our best to try and fix them. We try and help them work on their middas. We hope we do the best we can to try and prepare them for life. We fail, all of us. By the time they leave home, they still have unfinished business. The neshamas came back from Shemayim, and they're not perfect by the time they get married. They're on the way, but they're not perfect. So the spouse picks up where the parents left off, and they try and fix you. Have you noticed? And they fail too. And then you have teenagers, and they finish you off. Klal Yisrael has unfinished business. We have been, since the expulsion from the Beis HaMikdash, from Eretz Yisrael, according to Wikipedia, there are over 440 expulsions of the Jewish people throughout history. 440 from countries and cities. We faced enormous challenges through history, from the Spanish Inquisition and Tachbatat in Europe and the Holocaust in our times. We, as a nation, a Jewish nation, we have a lot of trauma, intergenerational trauma. We live with trauma as a people. The internet is facing us, forcing us to face ourselves and aspects of our life that are deeply challenging for us. We've always tried to be faithful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to His Torah mitzvahs. At the same time as we try so hard to be faithful, the world around us has always aspired to draw us towards it. And there's always been assimilation, there's always been challenges. But we've never had a window into the world. Even at the times in Europe of the Haskalah, when the walls came down, when Napoleon moved through Eastern Europe and the walls of the ghetto came down. But that's nothing like what the internet does today to show every child the world, everything about it. It's never been a point in history where if our children are fed up and they become teenagers and they're not being nourished by our families, our communities, our homes and our schools, if they're not being nourished, they can instantly find fascination, entertainment, distraction, pleasure through the internet, instantly. This never existed in the history of the world. Again, the premise of the book was about this, was about us creating such a deep attachment with our children that they wouldn't need to look elsewhere. They would feel connected to us, to our Messiah, to our life, to our values, because we pass it over to them with love, with joy, where they feel wanted and desired by us, both in our homes and our schools and our community. There is no possible other answer of just sheltering from the internet. What we need is only to nourish from within. And in this point in history, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pushing us into it in a way that never happened before. No young people ever got married in the history of the world in the past, and just you had to work on yourself or you're going to struggle with your kids. That didn't exist in previous generations. In today's generations, I'm convinced there are a lot of young people here and they know exactly what I'm talking about. It's constant work on yourself to be able to relate in a loving way to your children. And the children, they don't respond in kind so easily. And we never had this in the world. And the danger is if we don't do this work, the internet is standing there to pull them away, to pull them into a different world.
Mashgiachs and yeshivas, teachers, they try to teach us midas for many years. You're saying we go into parenting. Who's there to help us, to guide us through this milchemes hamidus? What do we want from the parents? What kelim can we give them?
I have discovered that the parents I speak to, are exceedingly resourceful once they recognize this shift has come upon them. I found the world we're living in today, between the self-help books and the positive, useful videos on the internet that are helpful for self-development, the proliferation of therapists everywhere in the frum community. My experience is parents are very resourceful once they understand what their job is. The job in the past was always the focus, fix your kids first. That's what you're doing. In this generation, it's fix yourself first. Take care of your own midas, because your kids will learn from you. When you work on yourself, they will learn from you. So we offer healthy, unconditional love to our children. That doesn't mean we're permissive. It doesn't mean we allow them to do whatever they want to do. Chas v'shalom. It means that when we direct them and help them, we do it in a way that's loving, where the children recognize, I'm doing this for your benefit, not for mine. This is not about me. It's not about me having a clean home. It's not about me having a convenience of my home. It's not about me. It's not about you owing it to me. That's not a message children hear anymore. On the contrary, when your children hear you telling them, to do various tasks around the house, the response from so many of today's generation is, what, I'm your servant? You wanted to have me so you'll have a slave? That's why you wanted me? Children have to feel that it's my job, my pleasure to parent you. My job is to help you become a healthy, happy, beloved human being, a happy person, successful in this world. That's my job. And I embrace my job gladly. And the struggles and challenges you give me, they're not in my way. Those struggles and challenges you give me are why I'm here. I'm here to help you. This change in the mentality of parenting is the future that's going to keep our children safe. And yes, so does it demand working on ourselves? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But really, truthfully, we, those of us, Zeicha, to be in the world, the Torah world, could there possibly be one of us who doesn't believe that the most important thing I do in this world is working on my midas? Is there anyone here who thinks that's not the most important reason we're living in this world, is to work on our midas? That's why Hashem sent us back. It's why we're here. As the Vilna Gaon in Sefer Eben Shleima says, the Iker Metzias HaAdam Ba'olam Hazeh Hu Tikkun Shviras HaMidas, breaking your midas, your bad midas. The real reason you're here is to break your bad midas. And the Gaon goes on to say, Ve'im lav lama l'chaim. And if not, what are you doing here? Kodesh Baruch Hu's brought us to this world. And if we can embrace this with love, with joy, with happiness, knowing this is my job, and watch the result of having a loving family and seeing what that does to our children, what could be better? It's consistent with all our values, our core values as Jews. This is our core values. And at the same time, it promotes a loving family that will truthfully, hopefully help our children stay close. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying easy, but I'm saying it's axiomatic to this next world. By the way, are people getting depressed about what I'm saying? No, seriously. Does it sound depressing? You can wave if it does. Honestly, when I talk to young people today, they relate to this very, very well. These are our core values. And if the beneficiary of those core values is I'm going to build a loving family, and I'm going to have children who I feel close to and loved, and they love me, what could be better? What could be better?
I want to show a video. I just want to summarize what you said, and actually the way, Rav Shimon, you said it now is how a lot of your Torah resonated on me, is that the difference between many other chinuch classes or books, it was more about giving methods. And what Rav Shimon was saying before, and I believe was so important for all of us, is what the book teaches, and Emetz Hashem will have a lot of his classes translated. What Rav Shimon's Torah teaches is understanding that this is what the child needs, and that's what Rav Shimon explained, and then you don't get angry. What gets us angry is we don't understand that this is what the child needs. Read this book, please. Listen to classes. When we're referring to, this is the first half, we're referring to the parent. The change in the parent and the parenting comes when the parent understands that this isn't just some method, some idea, unconditional love, new wave, new thing. Then you come into all the questions I was asking, but I'm angry. Once you understand that this is what the child needs, you're not angry. It might be frustrating, it might be difficult, but anger, this is what my child needs. And this is what Torah's Reb Shimon taught me, be'ikr. And I wish it upon all of you. Read the book. There'll be a video, and then I think we'll more discuss a little bit. We'll put some emphasis on what we can notice in the child and when we have our red flags.
Okay.
A short follow-up.
Okay.
I'm talking as a machanach, not as a parent. I can talk as a parent. I can talk as a machanach. This has to be addressed just like parenting changed. And parenting didn't exist the way it ever existed, the way it is today. How is this being addressed? To the machanchim as well. That the only way to be a proper machanach in this generation would require the only thing that it requires from a parent.
See, the world of chinuch, the school systems have their own unique challenges which play out in a different way than it is at home, but with the exact same philosophy. What I teach in the schools when I speak to mechanches, is I'm trying to appeal to them that they too cannot run a school system without structure, without rules, and without discipline. It's not possible. But the difference is in this generation is that we offer those things with kindness, without anger, without threats, without the feeling of you're unworthy and you're on probation here in our school and we really don't want you and you have to behave or you're out. Without all that, on the contrary, is that we want you and we'd love to work with you. And here are the consequences of your behavior. This is what you've done, and here's how we're going to teach you. We're here to help you. I'll give you an example. Do they have detentions in schools here? You know what detention is? They keep kids, what's it called? Detenzione? Something like that? It is? Detenzione? Oh.
No,
detention.
Detención.
Detención.
Okay.
Detención, yes?
Yes.
Detención. Okay, so schools were doing detentions, and I was noticing, this is just one example of how to apply this theory throughout the school systems. A school was having detentions. One day, the manal, the head of the school, called me and told me that this morning a child came into school and gave him a credit card. Gave him a credit card. And he said, what's the credit card for? He said, well, my father asked you to keep this on file, so each time I get a detention, they get a knas. You could just find me, just have the credit card available, so you could just find me right away. He missed the whole point. The manal called me and said, something's off, something's wrong. We need to change this. We gave him a few ideas, but one of them was the detention. And I suggested to him that when you put a child in detention, because you show a child, look, here's the rules, you didn't keep the rules, and I feel bad for you. I really feel bad for you. Oh, but you get a detention because that's the rules. And I feel sorry for you. I'm not angry with you. On the contrary, my job is to help you. So the kid goes to detention, and I told the manal to go and sit in detention with each of the kids and offer them help how not to get another detention. In the old days, they taught kids how to hate the Rambam. Did you know that? They taught the kids how to hate the Rambam because they put them in detention and said, write over, copy 10 pages of Rambam. So now the kids come out hating the school and hating the Rambam. So I said, no, go into detention and sit with the kids, a novel idea, a crazy novel idea. Sit down with the kids and say to them, I see you got a detention, I feel bad for you. How can we help you? You shouldn't get another one. And go from desk to desk with the kids, talking to them about how can we help you not getting another detention. This happened. This is an unbelievable story. This manal did, he called me back literally a few months later. He said he got a letter from a boy in 6th grade. This is how old? 6th grade? It's 11 years old. 11-year-old child wrote him a letter, and the letter was written on behalf of all the boys in detention, the regulars who keep getting detention. That Rebbe, we're really sorry that we keep you back, we keep you behind every day to come and sit in detention with us, to talk to us. So we're all going to try harder not to get a detention. You see, the theory is, chas v'shalom, not to give up ever on the structure and the discipline. That would be anarchy. We would destroy our kids' lives, God forbid. The difference is that we understand they're kids and they're having a hard time, and we're here to help you. And the kids have to pick up from us. That's my job, is to help you. I'm not angry with you. I'm here to help you. I told a manal one time, the boys were coming late for davening in the morning. They were coming late, and they were using detentions, knas, they were finding them. Nothing worked. They kept coming late, and they noticed the ruach in the school was getting worse. So the manal called me, asked me, what did I think? What should we do? So I told him the following. I said, wait, you have to daven first, before the kids daven. Wait by the door when the kids come in. If a kid comes in 5 minutes late, by the way, if you listen to this story, borrow from this story for your lives. Take this story, take the theory behind the story, and use it with your children. Ready? I told him to stand there by the door. If a child comes 5 minutes late, you say to him, wow, so happy you came. Don't worry you're late. I'm glad to see you. Go daven. A kid comes in 10 minutes late, you say, whoa, I'm really impressed you came. Good for you. Go daven. A kid comes in 20 minutes late, you say, how on earth did you come? I can't believe it. What a fight you must have had this morning, and you came anyway. Good for you. Go daven. And a kid that comes half an hour late, you say to him, you I'm very impressed with. You I'm very impressed with. I can't believe you came. I can't believe you came anyway. Half an hour late. Come to me in recess. I have a Danish for you and a soda for you. Come to me in recess. Now what are you doing? The kid, by the way, when I first said this publicly, I got one email attacking me. The email was from a woman who worked with eating disorders. She said, how dare you say a Danish and a soda? Carrot sticks, maybe, I don't know. What's the whole point? When the kid now comes to the manal in the break and recess for the Danish and soda, you can now talk to him and say, what was that word again?
Mi vida. Mi vida.
Mi vida? Mi vida. What's going on? You came late. I see it's the second time. You're coming very late. What's going on at home? How can we help you? And when you give him the Danish and soda, typically the kid starts crying because he feels cared for. And then he'll tell you exactly what's going on at home and why he came late, which might include that his mother's not feeling well and he stayed late to help her. He's a little tzaddik. But instead of just being angry and punishing, we have to shift the paradigm, shift the dialogue, where by the time the kid comes in feeling cared for. We're here to help you. We're not here to hurt you. The manal of this particular school, when he first did it, told me within a few months he had a whole new ruach in the school of kids feeling cared for, simply by this one intervention. I'm telling you, the kids of today are desperately wanting, desiring to be cared for, and they're not feeling it enough. Anger and frustration does not convey that to our children. Love and kindness, with the rules, with the structure, with the discipline, in a loving way, tells our children, we love you and we want that connection with you. Look, I'll tell you something else about connection. Is that okay? Mesoras HaTorah, the Mesorah of Torah, does not come through Yedias HaTorah, knowledge of Torah. The Mesorah doesn't come through the knowledge of Torah. It comes through the relationship with the person who's teaching you. Whether it's Rebbe or parent, that relationship with you is why they want to stay with the Mesorah. In the course of my life, many, many times, I've been working with people who barely stayed from. A tiny little chut held them to the basics of Yiddishkeit. They felt hurt, they felt they'd been abused, they had their struggles, and they were hanging on by a tiny thread. In the course of the therapy, it was frequent that such people would report and tell me stories about their horrible school experiences, about what they went through, what they experienced, and how bad it was. They would tell me all their stories. When they finished telling me their stories, I've asked thousands of people this question, and I get the same answer. It's astonishing, but it teaches us so much about Masorah of Torah. Because I asked these people, I want to ask you a question. Was there ever one Rebbe or teacher who made a difference in your life? One, just one, who made a difference. Every single kid, oh yes, every young person, they suddenly beam, and they tell me about their 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Cohen. Oh, Mrs. Cohen, you can't imagine. Or they tell me about this Rebbe who just looked away from everything in 7th grade. They all have one teacher or Rebbe that they claim is the reason I'm from at all today. Everyone. Now listen to this. I then lean into this with the kids, the young people, the young adults, and I say, can I ask you a question? Don't get scared when I ask you this question. But can you remember one thing that person taught you? Can you tell me one thing they taught you? You're telling me you're from today because of that person. The Masorah you have came from that person. They kept you from. Can you tell me one thing they taught you? And no one ever remembers. It's incredible. They're completely blank. It's astonishing. The reason they're from is because of that person, but I don't remember one thing they ever taught me. Because Masorah doesn't come through Yediyas HaTorah. We have to accept this. We have to realize this. It's not about knowledge. Masorah comes through relationship, because a person feels loved and wanted. And if they feel loved and wanted, they will stay with us. This is so profound. I forget what you asked me.
You answered.
If we would understand the power of the relationship, this is really, I have to tell you. Say again?
We got into this through the Mechanchim.
Mechanchim. Yeah, sure. So that's the power of what a mechanech, what a teacher, what a rebbe, and what a parent can do, is we give the child this feeling, you're wanted in my life. That's where Masorah comes from. That's why people stay, they will stay within our Masorah, because they feel someone cared about me and wanted me, not scared me into feeling I'm about to be thrown out. But on the contrary, conveyed to me despite whatever I would do wrong, they loved me anyway and accepted me. I once got a letter from a 16-year-old girl who had gone off and struggled. She was finding her way back. And she wrote a beautiful letter to one of her teachers. And the letter stated that the reason she's from and came back was because of this teacher. This one teacher. And she said, I have the letter. It's an amazing letter. She said, I drove you more crazy than I ever drove any other teacher. She had ADD. And she drove this poor woman crazy. And she says in the letter, and you never made me feel I'm a bad person. You made me feel I have a challenge, but you never made me feel I'm bad because I have a challenge. And she finishes the letter saying, I have the letter, it's so heartwarming. The 16-year-old girl finishes the letter. I hope one day I will be a teacher too, like you. I hope I'll be a teacher like you. And she writes very specifically, I drove you more crazy than I ever drove anyone. And you just accepted me. You just accepted me. In the new wave of chinuch and parenting of our children, this is how we grab them. This is how we keep kids close to us. On the contrary, if we would understand, can I say a personal story? My wife and I, you'll see if you read the book, we had our challenges. We're quite clear and open about it. We had learning disabled children. And aside from all the professional work I did, our kids probably were our greatest teachers. Yes? Probably. One time, I was with one of my children, our children, in Eretz Yisrael, and I thought she turned a corner. She was 17. I thought, it was early, she hadn't, but I thought she turned a corner. I spent Shabbos in Sfat together with her. You know the magic of Sfat? You go to Sfat and all the magic happens. And we had a beautiful Shabbos, and she enjoyed it. And I remember staying up all night. I called my wife, just to tell her it was wonderful. We had this great Shabbos, and maybe she's changing, and we're going to get her back. And I went to sleep. I got up at daven in the morning, and then I got in the car to drive to Yerushalayim with her. And as I say, the best way I know how to describe it is she got into the car dressed like she thought it was a swimming pool, not a car. You understand what I mean? And then the heavy metal turned on. And we drove out of Sfat. We went Derech HaBikah in those days. So we went to Bet Shan. And by the time we got to Bet Shan, I was in so much pain, I couldn't cope anymore with it. This was 25, 30 years ago. This is probably the story of 30 years ago. Yeah, almost 30 years ago. 30 years ago. And I felt so lost. And I had no idea what to do. I couldn't bear being in the car with my own daughter. It was so miserable. Heavy metal, the unclothing. Say clothing, the unclothing. We got to Bet Shan. I stopped the car. I threw the door open, and I crossed the street, and I walked down into the Jordan Valley to talk to God, because I was so lost. And I went down into the valley where I couldn't see anything, and I cried. And I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And I talked to Hashem. And I said, Hashem, help me here. I'm trying. I'm really trying. Can you help me out? Because I'm so lost. I don't know what to do. Please help me. This is pre-Breslev. Pre-Breslev. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered me and put the following words in my head. And these words formed the basis of everything my wife and I did afterwards. Everything we built on, everything we imagined and envisioned about how to reach children came at that moment in the valley, the Jordan Valley, with me crying away. And the words he put into my head were these words: defy me more than I can love you, you will fail. Defy me, be defiant, fight me. See if you can defy me, my daughter, more than my capacity to love you, because you can't. And when you realize that, you'll come back. It was such a gift. It was such a gift from Shemayim. And I got back in that car with this. I didn't tell her, but I acted that way. And by the time she was a year or so later, and got married, she was already Shomer Shabbos again. And she married from. I share this with you honestly and humbly because of the Yesod these words capture. Defy me more than I can love you. You will fail. For some reason, in this generation, our kids are defying us. They're fighting back against us. They're trying to reject us. And maybe it's some big grandiose celestial test. I don't know. But I know that the refuah through this is by me expanding myself to love her more than her defiance. And in fact, it turns out, listen to this, a child will heal better through their defiance than through their compliance. Let me just say that again because it's so important. A child will heal better through their defiance than through their compliance. When they comply with what we're asking them to do, they don't know if we really love them unconditionally. They're just complying. How do they know? When they defy us and we come back unconditionally loving them, they know it's real. They know it's real when it comes through defiance. So when our kids fight back at us and we push back with love, with kindness, again with structure, not with liberalism. I don't hold of this whole liberal rubbish, this idiotic liberal agenda that just destroys families. It makes it hard to find I was in LAX airport, I couldn't find a bathroom for men. There wasn't a bathroom for men. There were only shared bathrooms. This liberal agenda is crazy. That's not what we do. We offer structure, we offer rules, we offer hadrach and direction, but we do it with love. And when they defy us, we love them more. And when we love them more, they deeply know when it's through defiance, then they can really feel and know that we love them. And then they want to stay with us. And that's how we build attachment. Okay.
Okay.
How long are we going?
A few more minutes, yes. I just want Rabbi Russell, it's only his first time in Mexico. Right? That's a good deal, right?
Yeah.
First, second.
Yes.
You can only have a first if there's a second.
I see.
Right. There's a lot more that we want to touch on. I really, again, suggest read the book. But there are a lot of young parents here, so I just want to touch on one issue, and then we will be open to some select questions. Okay. But if you can help us, my kids 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, when do I start, let's call them, what would be red flags that we should, of course we always have to try to be the best parents we can. But like you mentioned this afternoon, many of them are here, we're all more or less most of the time. When do we see that there's something here that demands something more from me?
Okay.
That's just one. And the other thing is that people want to know is, sometimes it's clear, it's something diagnosed correctly or incorrectly, no his secrets. Then what do I do? Right? Just for younger parents or even older parents, but like, what am I supposed to start noticing?
Okay, so I'd like to answer this question. I could go through a list of 24 red flags. That's not for now. We're not doing it. It's just not appropriate. But I'd like to say one klal to leave you with that could be extremely helpful for the young parents. In days gone by, when we parent our kids, take the bedtime issue. And you say it's bedtime and they fight you and you force them and you push them and you take them to bed, you take their hand, you walk them up and you actually put them to bed. You'll notice your kids can be very upset. They're very angry with you. That's not a loving moment sometimes when you have to put them to bed and force them into the bedroom and they don't feel very good about it. And you notice there's like a disconnect from you tonight which worries you. However, tomorrow morning, when you see them, everyone's bright smiles and they lean into you for a hug immediately and everything's normal. So when they disconnect from you the night before because they're upset with you, that's called parenting. Can we embrace that? That's called parenting. They're not always going to be happy with you, and sometimes they're going to be moody and upset. But if tomorrow morning, when you greet them, they're happy, and they're with you, and they give you a smile, and they give you a hug, and they give you a kiss before they go to school, and everything's fine, that is called parenting. That's what it looks like. Here's what you have to be worried about, and seek help. When you see that you put them to bed and they have that disconnect for whatever consequence you gave them for something they'd done that they needed a consequence, and they disconnect from you and they seem resentful, and then you notice tomorrow it's continuing. And you see when they come home, they go straight back to their room and they start isolating from you. That's a raya, it's a proof, as far as I'm concerned, that something more serious is going on. And it wasn't about what you did. There's something else happening, and you should seek help. In this day and age, just like the connection is everything, similarly, disconnection teaches us everything. If we see our kids isolating, disconnecting, not wanting to connect and talk to us, and we're losing them, well, then you need to seek help. You need to seek help. That's, to me, the biggest red flag, because the best opportunity you have to believe you're going to be successful with your parenting is your relationship with your child. You always, always work the relationship. So if you discover you're losing the relationship, you have this eerie sense that she or he is isolating, disconnecting, not talking to me, running to their room, disappearing from the Shabbos table. They're moving into like a private sense of their lives. That's a huge red flag, as far as I'm concerned. And Sorochin, it needs help. You need help. That's probably the biggest red flag in this day and age that you will notice is the disconnect. Because everything else is called parenting. Kids fighting us, arguing with us, debating us. If tomorrow morning they're fine, trust me, that's what parenting looks like in this day and age. There's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. But if you feel the disconnect, seek help. Seek help.
Thank you.
I just want to say it. Thank you for coming out. We're going to finish. I don't want to keep you here longer. But thank you for coming out. All these things are in the book. Just do two things. Can I just suggest you do two things? Read the book cover to cover, because it's very geschmack. It's very nice to read. Then go back and study the book. Go back and study it slowly. The greatest To'eles. Thank you for coming out.
Que